I know that I've talked a lot about my family and detaching, but I don't want to detach from them completely. Like, I don't want to be separated and never speak to them. So, is there a way that I can be myself and set my boundaries and still be attached to them?
Yeah, great question. That's the dream, right?
Yes.
Well, we were just talking about words a few moments ago. So let's look at some words together. Individual, freedom, connection, attachment, group, and bond.
Okay.
Individual, freedom, connection, attachment, group, bond. People use these words all the time, but just like the other words, I don't think they're thought through very often. So let's use them in an example. Let's say you have a child, and that child forms an attachment to you. Technically, that child is their own individual, but they're basically born or quickly trained into an attachment to you.
Yes.
Just like you were born or trained into an attachment with your mom.
Yes.
Right. Now, that child, as an individual, forms a connection with a friend.
Okay.
We'll call the friend Joe. So your child connects to Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not attached to Joe yet, but they have formed a connection.
Okay.
So can you see the difference between individuals, connections, attachments, which are more than a connection, or sort of an excessive connection?
Yes.
Right. And so as a parent, maybe you start off happy that your child has formed a connection with Joe, but more and more that connection becomes an attachment and your child becomes attached to Joe. And then Joe forms a connection with a group of bad influences. He forms a connection with a gang.
Okay.
So now your individual child is torn between two attachments.
Mm-hmm.
The long-term attachment to mom or the new attachment to Joe, and by proxy, the gang.
Okay.
So now are you still so happy?
No.
Right. But you were happy for the connection or attachment as long as it was one that was you approved of.
Yes.
But as soon as it turns out that was one you don't approve of, even if your child's life path needs a gang phase to write his autobiography or become a giant celebrity, you're no longer happy about it.
Right.
And so you want to reestablish the connection with you, firm it up into a really strong attachment,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to dissolve any attachment or connection with Joe and the gang.
Right.
So as you try to do this, as you try to mess with your child's attachments and connections, you meddle with them,
Mm-hmm.
start getting involved, the kid speaks up and says, I'm an individual with freedom to connect with who I like.
Okay.
And now this hurts your attachment with your child even more because they don't want to be attached with a meddler. For a while, you were helping them and supporting them. You initially encouraged them to go make friends and meet Joe.
Yes.
Now you're meddling with all the connections and you're a meddler. And
Yes.
now they don't want to be attached to you. And it pushes them into further attachment to the gang.
Okay.
But the thing is, pretty much every kid has only ever known attachment. They have zero conscious experience with detachment. They had detachment when they were learning to walk or drink water or whatever, but they've never had conscious detachment. Like, I choose to detach from this. They've only known attachment. They've been born into it and trained into it from a long line of attachers.
Right.
And so now they're becoming attached to Joe. None of this is a healthy bond or a healthy detachment.
Mm-hmm.
A healthy bond is not attachment. A healthy bond is when two conscious individuals choose to bond or collaborate or connect over something with no attachment involved. They're both detached people. They know these things are not crazy important. They're not obsessed. They just have a healthy relationship with one another. So as we walk through this story, this example, you can see that you were all about attachment. Joe is all about attachment. The gang is all about attachment. And your child is just bouncing from attachment to attachment, depending on which one feels best or seems to work the best and has the least meddlers or the least amount of pressure or drama.
Right.
If the peer group or the gang has less pressure and drama, well, then I choose that attachment. If mom has less pressure and these guys have more drama, I choose that attachment. None of this is conscious, healthy bonding. It is all just bouncing from attachment to attachment. It's all bullshit. No offense, but to the mom or the child or the gang,
Right.
no offense, it is all bullshit attachment. There's very little conscious bonding or healthy connection in any of this.
Okay.
Happens all the time. You see it with families, churches, cults, governments, bureaucracies, fraternities, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And so most people don't like to admit this, but a lot of those organizations are pretty toxic. They're just filled with pressure and drama and obligation and guilt and shame and trying to keep people involved and like clutch them back and bring them back to the fold. Like, it's like, this is not healthy relationships, and you guys are not detached at all. And very rarely do you see anyone encouraging individual freedom. But the thing is, what they all want as they desperately cling to attachments is a healthy bond. What they're looking for is a healthy bond. And so this is why you get this weird dichotomy where you're torn. I want to detach from my family and get a little distance, but I also care about them and love them, and I don't want to detach from them and separate from them. Definitely not forever. Because like your therapist, you're using one word to describe two different things. You're using the word attachment to describe healthy bonding, and you're also using it to describe overimportance, clinginess, and failure to let go. But those are opposite things again.
Right. Okay.
And then people get confused and torn. And it's like, of course,
okay.
How can I be attached but not attached, but attached but not attached? They're two opposite things, and I don't know what to choose.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you can have both. You can be detached and then create a healthy, mature bond, a conscious bond by choice, because those two things aren't opposite. They go hand in hand. You can have a healthy bond once you've learned conscious detachment. And so in our example, the child can have a healthy bond with the mom or with the gang or with Joe, but only once they've experienced detachment. If they're born into a society of conscious attachment nonstop and they've never consciously detached from anyone, they don't have the experience. They don't have the practice. They don't even know what it is. They couldn't even describe it to you. So they can't possibly choose a healthy emotional bond with someone because all they know is toxic attachment. That's all they know.
Okay.
So you need that first experience of detaching from someone.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully multiple experiences of detaching with someone until you become good at it. And then you can start choosing healthy bonds.
Okay.
I choose to work with this person. I choose to collaborate with that person. I choose to make friends with this person. I choose to be closer to my mom. I choose to be a bit distant from my mom. Whatever the case, I consciously choose it. I know when to detach and how much to detach and how much to connect and how much to bond. And I don't attach at all because we're all individuals, and attachment is weird, unhealthy, over desire for outcomes.
Okay. I guess I feel I was using the word attachment in a different way, like you said. Like I was using it as a like connection instead, like a healthy connection. But I don't want to be attached to anything. I don't want to feel that over attachment, like an over need. So like in my family, I was taught family is everything. Like you do everything for them. But
anytime you say something is everything, it's over important.
Of course it's over importance. And I gave and gave and gave and gave and gave and gave, and nobody gave anything back to me. I mean, my mom, but I'm talking about my family in general.
Yeah, your mom's pretty awesome.
Yeah, my mom is great. And I don't want to make it sound like, oh, she's a horrible person. Not at all. She's super loving and kind.
No, you just have
generous
goals right
but
now.
We have totally different goals.
But they're actually aligned.
Yeah. And I really would love
a healthy
bond and connection with her where I don't feel from either of us there's an over attachment, that there's an over like need, like desperate to tell me what to do. Like I feel coming from her, whether it's true or not, it's the feeling I get of over controlling feelings. I want to control what my daughter does and says and lives, and I want to control her. Whether she feels like that or not, I don't know. That's the vibe I get.
Sure, but you can have a healthy bond only when
I detach.
Yeah.
I have to detach.
Every child goes through this because they are born into constant attachment. So they must know both sides in order to choose which one.
Yeah.
And to create a healthy bond, you can't only know one. You have to know both attachment and detachment. And then you can choose a healthy bond.